Oh, you bitch ass. I'm the bad guy. I don't give a fuck. Fuck 'em. Fuck these motherfuckers. I don't wanna watch this bullshit. I don't wanna watch this bullshit. Fuck this shit.
And oppression.
Hopefully, motherfuckers.
Solely on the basis of the color of their skin, thousands of Cherokee families were evicted from their homes by American soldiers and forced onto what became known as the Trail of Tears. One of the Christian missionaries who traveled with them wrote, "I have no language to express the emotions which rend our hearts to witness this season of cruel oppression. In Georgia, multitudes were not allowed to take anything with them but the clothes they had on. Well-furnished houses were left a prey to plunderers who, like hungry wolves, follow the progress of the captors and rifle the houses and strip the helpless. For what crime, then, was this whole nation doomed to this almost unheard-of suffering?"
The period of Indian removal really is a black mark on American history. America, which started out as a shining city on a hill, sinks to the bottom of darkest depths in Indian removal. Andrew Jackson and other Americans were willing to do what it took to separate Indians
That's what I
from their
gotta do.
land. If it meant ignoring treaties, if it meant ignoring principles of international law, if it meant ignoring common decency and a sense of justice, then it was done.
With smallpox and cholera rampant on the Trail of Tears, more than 2,000 Cherokees died. Andrew Jackson had tried to convince Native Americans that he was their great white father. But the Cherokee now had a different name for him.
They call him Jackson. And other Cherokees people hearing me say that would laugh. Jackson the devil. Jackson. He's devilized. Andrew Jackson. Unless you become more watchful, you will find that the most important powers of government have passed into the hands of the corporations.
YouTube, I don't have access. I don't know the passwords and shit to my old accounts. If I delete this fucking page, can you delete the other ones for me, please? Oh, one big fucking bad dream.
In his concern for how average Americans would fare as the economy became ever more industrialized.
Like life. One fucking nightmare after another.
The world we know was taking shape.
Fuck this stupid shit.
And the questions that were so urgent then continue to be urgent. It was the nature of capitalism. It was how people were going to make their livings. And there's nothing scarier, nothing more fundamental to people than how they're going to feed themselves and clothe their families and make their way in the world. For centuries, learning a craft such as shoemaking had enabled workers to make a decent living. But across the country, artisans like shoemakers were suddenly losing their jobs to factories.
All of a sudden, it's a job that can be done by a child, by a woman, by an unskilled man for pennies. But think what happens to the shoemaker. The shoemaker who has spent all of his life learning the skills of making a whole shoe, his skills have become worthless. And as a result, he
Lying
feels
ass YouTube.
And if you look at how much money he's got in his pocket, he may be worthless that way also. He's broke.
In the early years of Andrew Jackson's presidency, these working class Americans created a new way of giving voice to their concerns. The minstrel show. On the surface, it was simply an expression of racism and proof of how little white Americans really knew about black Americans. But the hidden secret of the minstrel show was that it was not just about how whites saw blacks, but also about
Come on, man, I'm suffering. You know you want to see me suffer. Oh, that's right. That's right. You are watching me.
On that mask.
Your son gonna let me know.
Americans. But by virtue of putting on that mask, you've also enabled yourself to speak of yourself. The songs of the theater at the time revealed that the audience is feeling squeezed by a new America. It's being squeezed by an America that seems to be coming more and more for the rich instead of the common people. So we can look to the stage and we can find a place in American society where that working class could express in a powerful and gripping way what it feels.
I agree. I'm not getting cancer fast enough. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
White American, putting on the mask of a slave was a way of saying, I feel like a slave. The minstrels also talked about the man they hoped would free. They sang, there's some who at our party rail, call us the ragtag and bobtail. But we have some within our pale, who we are sure will never fail to vote for General Jackson. For Andrew,
I will smile too much. You might take that thumbs up away.
Was what he could do to prevent these average Americans from being exploited by the rich and powerful.
Entertain, man. Drop a comment on some fake account or some shit, man. Do something quick while I'm still up. Oh, that's right. You're going to wait for me to go to sleep like you usually do and then retract every fucking thing you say.
Its real title was the Second Bank of the United States. But Jackson supporters called it the Monster.
Andrew Jackson dislikes all banks, he said at one point, but he particularly disliked the bank.
Suck my fucking cock.
Well, the reason was simple. It had too much power outside of any kind of public accountability. The bank was an enormous economic institution. It could really control credit and therefore control the American economy itself. For Jackson, that meant that the American economy
I'm going to try to OD on some B12 gummies.
by people who were not elected.
You have a wonderful
Unelected
night.
Bankers had their hands on the levers of power.
Leave me something nice to wake up to, sweetheart.
And indeed could control the political system itself.
To Jackson, one of the monster bank's worst sins was that it was funding new.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about. I'm going to leave them up tonight, baby.
Tentacles around both the economy and the government. These new businesses were called.
I ain't changed the profile picture. I gave you some more ugly pictures
The
of it.
problem with corporations, as far as Jackson was concerned, was they had no body to be kicked or soul to be damned. They were faceless, anonymous machines that were motivated only by making profit for their shareholders. And as a result, they could grow much, much larger than the average consumer, the average worker, the average citizen.
But Jackson's opponents thought corporations would help America become more prosperous, and they thought his plan to blow up the bank verged on insanity. For it was the bank that guaranteed that the paper dollars in American wallets were worth something.
Jackson took a kind of fundamentalist view of money and credit. Gold and silver dollars were real money. Paper was, in some sense, fake. Those who were perhaps more astute economists than Jackson.
Them motherfuckers do put me to sleep, though. I will say that.
The United States had been built on credit.
I eat the whole fucking bottle. Give me some shut up.
We have always been a paper money people. We won the
That's what I'm talking
revolution
about.
on paper money.
Clay and his allies in Congress decided to put some heat on Old Hickory. Near the end of Jackson's first
Well,
term,
you saved me some
they passed
time.
a bill extending the bank's
You got all them
authority.
pictures.
Clay calculated
So,
that the president would have no choice but to sign
I guess there really is no fucking point to delete this fucking page. Who the fuck's gonna watch it anyways? You know what I mean? Who gives a fuck? I'm not gonna waste my fucking time. I mean, I would, but I don't have access to the other accounts. So
But Clay had made a fundamental
I had to find that fucking tablet.
about the character of Andrew
put it
Jackson,
one.
a character
I only got two now, so yeah,
exemplified by an
I have to
event
find that
took
fucking
place.
tablet. I'm sure somebody done
The Battle
lifted that
of the
one.
Bank. At the president's request, a Navy surgeon was brought to the White House to operate on a painful shoulder.
Congratulations on your theft.
The problem was a simple one. There was a bullet. 20 years before,
That make you feel good to steal?
Major General Jackson became
And pose like you're somebody else.
between one of his officers.
You sound like a real winner to me.
Instead of mediating the dispute, as might have been expected of a man of his stature, General Jackson took part in a full-scale gun battle.
Ha ha ha.
During it, he was shot at point-blank range and almost died.
That's when I think I'm the biggest loser in the world. Here you come.
This saga defined the character
Thank
of
you.
Andrew Jackson. He could not pass up a fight, and when he fought, he was willing to risk everything.
Oh, shit. Hey, how come Wells didn't get any flyers?
The bank is trying to kill me.
Well, Wells didn't get any flyers because he was black. And he actually put some work in.
On July 10th, 1832, Jackson vetoed the bill reauthorizing the bank.
That's your claim to fame.
The president's
I lost my mind.
defense of the veto
I got
was
lost in the
perhaps
wilderness and never came back.
For he had to explain to the American people, not with bombast, but with words from his heart.
Oh, shit. Oh, shit. God almighty. My life ain't never been that bad.
The
Fuck.
rich and powerful too often bend the acts of government to their selfish purposes. When the laws undertake to make the rich richer,
Oh, shit.
the humble
Oh, yeah.
society, the farmers, the mechanics, and laborers,
Oh,
who have
shit.
neither the time nor the means
Yeah.
of securing like favors to themselves,
Mhm.
have a right to complain of the injustice of their
Anyways,
government.
back to Andrew Jackson documentary. You have a good night.
We can at least take a stand against any prostitution of our government to the advancement of the few
Fucking idiot.
at the expense of the many.
Oh, shit.
To help rally support for Jackson's re-election campaign in 1832, the president
Ah, fuck,
and
I laid
his
down.
closest advisor.
I'm gonna turn off the light. Does that make me an evil person? Does that mean I'm worshiping the devil because I don't have any lights on in the house? Anyways.
The Democratic Party.
It's 2021, man. You never know. Oh, shit. There goes Satan.
The democracy.
Lucifer, don't get me now.
As the association of the vast majority of Americans, the majority that should govern, to make sure that they would govern.
Ah, the beast!
There are all sorts of ways in which ordinary people can participate. Jackson thinks that's important because the ordinary people have to associate more because they don't have the resources that the rich and the well-born do.
For years, Jackson's opponents had lampooned his frontier roots by portraying him as a jackass. To their shock, the Jacksonians began embracing the symbol. Well, the donkey as a symbol of the Democratic Party started out as a satire, as an attack on the rubish, Beverly Hillbillies nature of Jackson's Democratic Party. But interesting, people like Henry Clay and others didn't quite understand that in urban settings, the donkey may have been a figure of fun, but for people in rural America, which was most of America at the time, the donkey was essential to daily life, and it was someone you could rely on. And Jackson and the Democrats were presenting themselves as people you could rely on. A second party quickly arose to oppose the Democrats. Called the National Republicans, they chose Jackson's fiercest rival, Henry Clay, to run against him for president. Henry Clay and Andrew Jackson hated each other. Clay saw himself as a great American statesman and couldn't quite understand how this rube from the Carolina backcountry, who'd never gone to school, who'd never read a book in Clay's view, could possibly be so powerful and have such a hold over the people, thereby ensuring that Clay himself would never do that, because he didn't appreciate, I think, Jackson's gifts of both charisma and the power of his personality. During the election campaign, Jackson and his advisors again demonstrated complete mastery of the media tools available to them.
This man was sitting for his portrait again and again and again. Jackson had a sense that I want the American people to know me and to know what I look like. And I think it says something about his political sense. He's a first in many ways, and he's the first president that I know who had a desire to use the media to communicate with the American people.
On election day, voters flocked to the polls in record numbers. And thanks to Jackson's reputation as a military hero and his continuing expansion of America, they gave Old Hickory a landslide victory. But what Andrew Jackson read into the victory was that he now had a mandate to destroy the Bank of the United States. And so the president ordered the government's money removed from the bank. But even some in his own cabinet thought such a step was illegal, and Jackson had to replace 2 Treasury secretaries before finding a third who would obey him.
Nothing like this would happen again until Richard Nixon, during the Watergate crisis, had to go through 3 attorneys general to find one who would fire Archibald Cox as special prosecutor.
On the floor of the U.S. Senate, Henry Clay asserted that nothing less than the future of American democracy was at stake.
We are in the midst of a revolution, hitherto bloodless, but rapidly tending toward the concentration of all power in the hands of one man.
For the only time in American history, the Senate censured the president. People throughout the nation began calling it the Bank War. It was a war in which reason and economics were the casualties, and the chief combatants were Jackson and the president of the bank, Nicholas Biddle.
The confrontation between Andrew Jackson and the Bank of the United States escalated, you might almost say, beyond the bounds of sanity. From the point of view of Nicholas Biddle, president of the Bank of the United States, this maniac president was going to destroy the American economy. And both sides got so wrapped up in it that they did reckless things. Nicholas Biddle, in an effort to procure a recharter, actually triggered what was called a panic in those days. A stock market crash and a brief depression. Not realizing that in doing this, he was proving every point Jackson made about the reckless power that the Bank of the United States held over ordinary Americans' lives.
Finally, in 1836, the bank's charter expired and its doors were closed, and Andrew Jackson once again emerged from a battle victorious.
An historian has written that every once in a while in American history, it becomes necessary to save American capitalism. The capitalists, left to their own devices, they will so accrete power that they will end up ruining the economy. Well, Jackson in some ways saw that as the beginning of that process, as American capitalism was just beginning to develop. He saw that to keep the system going in a democratic fashion, as he saw it, it was necessary that accountability had to be there in the system in a way that did not seem to be as
I might just break this fucking laptop tomorrow. That was quick, wasn't it?
Jackson's battles during his second term in office